I'm Gabby's Jules. Blue skies over West London. What a weekend of football. So much going on. We had Liverpool winning that
Yeah,
little thing we call the Premier League. We'll be talking about them in the second segment, not because it's not important, but because it's we kind of saw this one coming
yeah, it
a
was
mile
expected.
away.
Yeah,
But we also had the FA Cup semifinals. We have Bayern not winning the title, not this week
not yet.
anyway, in the Bundesliga. We have Inter dropping points at home to Uncle Claudio Ranieri. And the FA Cup semifinals as well.
Yeah,
Did I mention that? Well, but we got to start with the Copa del Rey. Joseph, let me just come out and say this. There was so much tension before, and we will get to that, and we will analyze it, with what happened with the referee, Bengoechea, crying in the press conference, Real Madrid TV before that. Some of the footage that they put out, kind of, I guess, questioning
yeah.
his competence, if not
Integrity.
his integrity. It was so poisonous going out onto the pitch. And in the end, while there were some big refereeing calls, and which we'll get to as well, I thought we saw a phenomenal game. Barcelona dominating the first half. Then it swung to Real Madrid. We saw some phenomenal bits of skill. And I have to give a shout out to, for me, the best player on the pitch was also the youngest player on the pitch. Lamine Yamal, especially that pass to Ferran Torres.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, even if the mistake by Courtois led to the goal, otherwise it would not have been probably not an assist from Lamine. But outstanding in two different styles, obviously. Still a very physical game, but Barcelona, as you would expect, with the ball and being so good with the two wingers. Real Madrid with Kylian Mbappes on the bench started that front four, the fantastic four, never actually playing together, which is probably why they were better in the second half. Once Mbappe was on the pitch, there was no Rodrigo. It was a little bit more balanced with Arda Güler as well. And maybe on another night, Real Madrid win it. Would they have deserved to win it? I'm not sure, but they certainly had a decent second half. But in the end,
Yeah, it could have gone either way, I think. But I think Barcelona are definitely worthy
yeah, yeah,
winners
yeah,
for all these. So remember, Barcelona also, without Balde and without Robert Lewandowski,
yeah,
balancing out the Mbappe situation. We understand he was banged up, didn't start the game
yeah,
as a result. Um, and then when he came on, it was like it was like flicking a light switch. All of a
yeah,
sudden,
yeah, absolutely.
they kind of murdered the high line. And Wojciech Szczesny again deserves a shout out. Made some really, really big saves
Yeah,
as well. On the refereeing angle, look, I think most people, unless you're related to Florentino or just a monothematic Madridista, we've said it before, preemptively coming out and questioning somebody's integrity is just bizarro world.
yeah,
It's happened before. The fact Real Madrid were very upset by the fact that he cried before in that dramatic press conference
yeah,
on Friday, um, to the point that there were suggestions that they might try to get a different referee in for the game. In the end, we were all hoping to not have to talk about the referee, but we did because he made a really, really big call. 6 minute of injury time at the end of the 90. Raul Asensio on Rudiger. On Rudiger, on Rafinha. He
yeah,
gives the penalty. VAR tells him to go and have another look, and he overturns the penalty and books Rafinha for diving.
yeah.
Correct decision?
Yeah, 100%. There's never any contact. And to be fair, I thought it was quick of giving it. But as soon as you see the replay, you could see that it's a dive. So
It's interesting because certainly on the feed I was watching here in England, they were suggesting that. I mean, at first they said 100% penalty, and then you looked at it, and I think it was the right decision. I don't 100% know that you need to give a yellow for the dive. That might be the
yeah,
main sticking point. The other upshot of this, of course, is there is strong reporting suggesting that. Right. Initially, obviously, everybody tears their heads out. Oh, Ancelotti's going. It's being sacked as a matter of hours. No, it's not a matter of hours. Our understanding is he's going to stay until the end of the season. He may not stick around for the Club
no,
World Cup.
yeah,
Personally, if I'm Real Madrid, I think maybe that's a good thing. And I think if you're Ancelotti, that's a good thing. He looked
yeah,
to me like a guy who needs time off. I mean, he got his booking 24 minutes into the game. This is not the Ancelotti I know, just his
yeah,
demeanor
yeah,
on the
yeah.
sidelines and whatever. And
Absolutely.
maybe if you can get your ducks in a row with the next Real Madrid manager, maybe having this guy take over for the Club World Cup, assess the players, get an understanding, and then you have a whole transfer window in which to work. That might not be a bad thing. All right, let's break this down a little further, more. Actually, before we break it down further and highlight the positives, because it's Monday, we want some positivity here.
Positive.
Let's go further with Ancelotti and sort of the succession. A lot of people are taking it as read that he's going to be the next Brazil coach.
Yeah.
I haven't had confirmation of that, just for my part. It's kind of funny because there's the guy who supposedly works for the Brazilian FA, who was there in midweek at it was a Getafe game, was it? And was at the Copa del Rey final as well. Brazilian FA saying, well, no, that guy doesn't work for us. He doesn't represent us. Whoever that guy is, he's there, and people are adding fuel to the fire that a deal is in the work. I was struck, though, by sort of some of the body language between Ancelotti and Florentino after the game. Okay, Florentino obviously pretty muted at the best of times. But my understanding is that whatever's happened, or sorry, the picture that I see from Florentino is that whatever's happened, he's not going to blame Ancelotti for throwing things away. And he wants him to go on good terms. And on his part, Ancelotti said, I'm going to go away when the club tell me to go away.
Yeah. I mean, he's got another year on his contract. We all know that. But we also knew that he was going to do what the club was telling him to do. I don't think there's any point sacking him now anyway. They're 4 points behind Barcelona in the league. They can still win the league. I know right now it doesn't look likely because this Barca team that is not perfect by far and still has obviously the Champions League semi-finals to play. So more games than Real Madrid. Still are in control, really, and can afford a defeat and still be crowned champions. So, but it would be stupid to sack him now and replace him by Raúl or Solari or somebody like that, which might be the case for the Club World Cup if they can't get by then his successor. But really, if you're Ancelotti, there's really only Brazil. You don't go to another club now. So it's either you retire or suddenly you take some time off, long time off at his age, or you think like Brazil could be fun for like a 4-year cycle, or let's say the next 2 World Cup cycle, maybe, potentially. I think if you're Carlo, that must be really appealing too. So
I think it is. I think you would have shut the story down a long time ago if it didn't have an appeal for him. From Real Madrid's perspective, my suggestion that maybe it's best if he does not go to the Club World Cup.
Yeah, definitely.
Does it only make sense if you can get a successor in to go, as opposed to Solari or type?
Yeah, although to be fair, you're going to take half of your reserve team anyway. All clubs are going to do that. So all clubs will have a 40-player squad, half of them being kids. It's normal. It's like what you would do in pre-season. This is similar. So to be fair, if you bring Arbeloa, for example, who's had the under-19, half of his team are going to go to the Club World Cup probably. So, Arbeloa, for example, for that competition.
Are you suggesting Real Madrid are not going to take this competition seriously?
No. I think the two are different things. I'm just saying that every club are going to take. It's normal. They're going to take the same squad they would take to pre-season, because this will also be used as a pre-season time. So all of them will have a huge squad with a lot of kids from the academy. So if you have somebody in charge who knows those kids as well and is also close to the first team, especially somebody who's been there before, I think it could also make sense, whether that's Raúl or Arbeloa or even somebody like Solari, people who are already at the club. It's definitely another option, because by then Xabi Alonso might say, you know what, I don't want to go straight back in on June 10th to be ready for the Club World Cup, and then he might want to arrive after or something like that. I don't know. So it might be a bit of tricky to manage, but I think there's a few options that are possible.
I think if your next manager were an unemployed manager, and let me see if I can think of an unemployed manager that's won Champions League titles and Liga titles and has a connection to Real Madrid, coming in just for the Club World Cup, maybe coming back to the club again. Who could I possibly be thinking of? Maybe a guy who was balding and wore number 5.
There's no way.
Okay, all right.
No way Zidane comes for a month.
And then takes over the team again. I don't know. No. I'm thinking, because like what I was laying out was the ideal scenario. The next coach.
Yeah.
But I take your point. If the next coach is Xabi Alonso, or if it's any coach who's employed right now, it's a huge asking him, okay, you get 1 week off and then you're off with these guys you've never worked with. On the other hand, if you're Real Madrid, I think it's the kind of thing you, Real Madrid as a club, can ask of a coach and demand of a coach.
True.
Because you are
Yeah,
Real Madrid and nobody else is.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's a preseason. It will be a bit of half a preseason, half a serious tournament. So, yeah.
All right, moving on to the positives, because again, we have to talk about the unpleasantness. There's a ton of unpleasantness. And Antonio, don't think that, we've forgotten about you, Tony. We'll be getting to you later. And thank you for apologizing. But there were moments of ridiculous skill in this game. And I want to highlight Pedri because I said Lamine Yamal was the best player on the pitch. I stand by that. Also the youngest player. But I think the reinvention this season of Pedri to that deeper playmaking position is almost like underreported. It's almost like it's been overtaken by all the other, Rafinha and Yamal and all of Lewandowski's goal. This is a big, big part of Barcelona being able to sustain what they've done throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, I know he loses the ball on the Mbappe free kick and the goal. I just thought he was incredible. For me, he's the best midfielder in the world. He's the best player in the world right now in pure form. Better than Lamine, better than Rafinha, better than Dembele, Salah, whoever you want. I just think he's incredible at that age to have gone through that position. And we talked about Gravenberch, and rightly so, to him in that Liverpool double pivot and how great he's done, and we didn't see that one coming. For Pedri to just dominate everything like this with the ball, without the ball, is just fantastic. The goal is wonderful because it's his ball first. It's a long one too. But everything, he's because sometimes you've got the technical ability side of it, but not maybe the physicality or the running. Let's think about it like a Pirlo, for example, who was so elegant, but don't ask him to go too much into the duels and things like that. Pedri, I think, has everything, and he's still so young. It's just wonderful to watch.
Despite being a little guy as well.
Yeah, as well. A skinny guy too, yeah.
Mbappe, what exactly was wrong with him before?
The ankle injury that he sustained against Arsenal that made him come off early. Then obviously he was suspended against Getafe, and he was not 100% apparently.
When he came on, I thought, again, we big up halftime speeches or whatever, but clearly Vini on his own up front was not working.
Yeah.
I think Real Madrid managed just one shot in that first half, something like that. But then he comes on and, okay, you can say it's easier to play against the high line. You got two fast guys up front. And I think also when you play a high line, it's one thing to queue in and when you're only queuing in on one threat, but when you have to queue in on two threats, it becomes that much more difficult.
Yeah.
But some of those moves, some of that skill, some of the goals that were disallowed and so on, I thought that was really, really special.
Yeah, I think it would have been a different story had he started. But we said it before, Gabby, and I said it on the FC show too. The front four of Rodrigo, Bellingham, Mbappe, and Vinicius just cannot work at this level against teams like that. Arsenal, Barcelona, big games in the Champions League, where Liverpool, it just doesn't work. And it's not a surprise, I think, that the second half was so much better from a Real Madrid point of view because, as we said earlier, the balance was better because Rodrigo wasn't there. It's not so much Rodrigo himself; it's that front four wasn't there. And I think if you're Mbappe, he had in mind the goal tally that Cristiano scored for his first season at Real Madrid, which was 33. He was level with him on that. That goal that he scored, the free kick, which never scored a free kick before, 34. That was very special to him. It was a game he wanted to do well because obviously, remember what happened in the Clásico at the Bernabeu where he was offside like 8 times. And that also scarred him a little bit. So I think he had that kind of motivation and desire, regardless of another final and whoever he was against. And now he scored in the 4 finals that Real Madrid have played this season, which I think in itself, I know the Intercontinental Cup is not the greatest and the Spanish Super Cup or the European Super Cup is not as good as the Champions League final, but it's still 4 finals, scoring 4 times, which I think is a bit special. So, yeah, that second half was much better with him.
In the name of Cristiano fanatics everywhere, I need to point out that Cristiano Ronaldo played as a winger in his first season.
And less games than
and Kylian Mbappe played center forward. So Cristiano, you're still the best. Don't worry, Cristiano, if you're watching. We're not saying Kylian is better than you, just that he happened to have scored more goals this season.
Yeah.
That's it. I want to talk about, I 100% agree with what you're saying. And in fact, we said this all season long. It doesn't bear repeating. This is a horrendously constructed squad, which was also hit hard by injuries. Obviously, we're seeing it in Militao and his haircut in the stands, you wonder, hey, look, what if that guy was on the pitch? What if Carvajal was on the pitch? I'm seeing Carvajal, by the way, seems to have gone gray in the time in which he's been injured, probably watching this team. And that's on the club. That's on the club putting this team together. We even mentioned Ferland Mendy getting injured early on.
Yeah.
Again, I don't say you don't want to see anybody get injured, but probably not that damaging to Real Madrid in the end, given the way I thought Fran Garcia did fine when he came on. But I use this to tie it in with Antonio Rudiger because he was also clearly not 100%. He's clearly a warrior. When I saw him bandaged up, when he looked like the mummy or something, and going back out there, clearly that's got to be a combination of adrenaline, painkillers. It says to me there's literally nobody else at that moment in the game. There's no second guessing you can do to Carlo. You can say, well, put Chouameni back there, and then what? Then I have a big gaping hole in midfield and asking a 39-year-old, right? Because there's no Camavinga either. And Dani Ceballos had come off. Not that, even the fact that Dani Ceballos is fundamental to this team at this stage of the season is evidence.
It's baffling.
And when you have your inquest, have the inquest about that. Not just why does Militao get injured? Why is Alaba's recovery not good? What did Carlo get wrong? Look at all these things, please, Real Madrid. Sure. At the end, everybody wound up so tight by the preamble, by the referee. At the end, I think what put them over the top was what looked to be a foul, or what might have been a foul or a penalty at the end, if Brahim Diaz hadn't been offside.
Yeah. But it was clear. He was offside.
He was clear there. There's no debate about that.
Not even a controversy or anything. There.
No, but it's like they don't see the offside, and they all absolutely lose their minds. You saw were 3 red cards at the final whistle. One of them, Antonio Rudiger, who threw an ice pack at the referee. Now, he apologized for it. People are saying 10, 12 game ban. Does that seem appropriate when you do that?
It's between 4 and 12. That's the what the rules say.
I mean,
I don't know. I know he doesn't touch the referee, but you clearly see the object flying. You just can't. You can't throw something towards the referee to hit the referee. You don't throw it. You throw it at him to hit him.
Yeah,
you can't.
This is not like Mr. Marinaki, so of course it's entirely normal when you need to expect to spit on the floor, and the referee happens to be there, but that's okay because it's normal. I spit indoors in my house all the time.
That was 5.
What?
That was 5 games, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
For Marinakis, I think Rudiger is going to get 10.
Who would win a fight between Marinakis and Rudiger?
I think Rudiger wins a fight against anyone.
Oh no, my money's on Marinakis.
No, definitely not.
Because he would expectorate right into Rudiger's eyes. He would blind him, and they would stomp his head. Anyway.
And you know what? It's not. I mean, the throwing is bad. Is how possessed Rudiger looked in his eye, and the fact that somebody had to, and maybe
multiple people.
Yeah, because what happens then if you don't? He runs onto the pitch and goes at the ref. Like I just don't know, and we know his temperament. We've known him for a long time now. We know he's got that. There's that risk with him to go a bit mad like that. But I'm sorry, it's just not acceptable.
That temperament is obviously, I know it's a big sports cliche. It's what makes him great. It's also what really costs him in situations like this. How much of this has to do with the preamble, with this messaging from the club? And I was struck by something, and I really have to take. I thought Real Madrid's the statement that they put out after Begochia's crying press conference, where they said it was unacceptable, blah blah blah, and they said he's angry because Real Madrid TV are exercising their free speech. This is
which is the line all the time, by the way.
Yeah, this is what really bugs me.
Yeah,
who owns Real Madrid TV? Real Madrid. Yeah. It's not somebody else. It's not some external. It's not Marca. It's not somebody else, right? So you are dictating the line. So when they speak, they are representing the club.
Yeah.
If they even exist, it's because of sponsorship and the branding of the club. So you exercise power over them. Nobody wants to limit. Free speech does not mean you get to say whatever you like without consequences, right? There's very, very clear rules. So you are choosing to allow them to go and say this stuff preemptively. All this stuff, this is all based on, well, first of all, they put out these pretty fugazi statistics about the winning percentage of the two things. Then they put out video. Of course, Bengoechea was the referee in that game at Valencia, which Real Madrid lost. The one where Vinicius was racially abused and so on. But you're choosing to bring this stuff up preemptively in public, but you're not doing it directly. If Florentino or Butragueño or Valdano or somebody else comes out, or Ancelotti, Ancelotti wouldn't do it, I would hope, but get him to do it. Say, like, we have a problem. We don't want this referee, right? Yeah. You do it privately with Luzon or whatever his name is, and you come out and you put your face to it. This is just sneaky. It's unwarranted.
Yeah, and that's what they do regularly. We've said that before this season because it's not the first time. It's controversial and everything. This was taken to another level. I mean, they even threatened not to turn up, not to show up for the final.
I think they denied that.
Yeah, but like, you know, that was the atmosphere around this game. And we've said it before, Gab. I think even if the players are obviously kept apart from all of this, I don't think they watch Real Madrid TV. I would think so. But even if you don't want to as a player, this narrative comes into your head. So you believe what they're saying about the referee. You believe the referee is impartial or partial actually, and biased and this and that. And I think that creates some tension that this dressing room doesn't need before final against the arch rivals in a Clásico. And we've said it before that it gets them pumped, but probably for the wrong reason, because then everything is targeted at the referee all the time.
The referee and the VAR, the same VAR, by the way, who put out the video, who recalled Bengoechea after Rafinha dive and said, no, it's not a penalty to Barcelona, overturn it. If you were super cynical, if you lived in a Machiavellian world with no ethics, you would say, well, but it worked. Maybe if we hadn't done this, then maybe Bengoechea and maybe the VAR wouldn't have sent those pictures and recalled Bengoechea to the screen. I don't think that's football.
No.
I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think Florentino, and again, I don't even know if it's Florentino at this stage because the man is in his mid-70s now, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that he has the micromanaging control over the club that maybe he once had. But
there's no way those statements are not, the statements that the club website put out are not known by him before.
Then if that's the case, then Florentino, for all his faults, did not used to behave that way.
Yeah. But where do you stand about people that are saying that Real Madrid lost a lot more than just a Copa del Rey final on Saturday in terms of image, the class? I mean, it's a club that I've always said, how classy they were and the white shirt and blah, blah, blah. And all of these shenanigans from Thursday on to Saturday night. Do you believe that's tarnish them, hurt them, or you just think that we're all going to move on because there's another game and there's next season and etc. etc.
It's an interesting point. Somebody made the suggestion that maybe to the broader audience, it has between this and Vinicius not going to the Ballon d'Or and so on.
Things like that.
But there's other people who say that we live in an era where media. First of all, we don't have traditional media anymore, right? Everything is more segmented. You have club channels, you got social media and so on. And more people live in echo chambers. And this is not just in sports, it's in politics too, right? If you're concerned with environmental causes, so you consume media that's all about the environment and you think that the whole world is blowing up. You're right wing, you're left wing, you can find your little world, right? And you can exist in a Real Madrid world in the same way you can exist in a Barcelona world, in an Arsenal world, unless you watch Arsenal TV, because those guys get unpleasant sometimes. But
that's not the clubs.
But that's not the clubs. That's right. But you can choose to consume very specific media, and it becomes very, very tribal. I don't even know how many people necessarily consume sort of the down the middle mainstream thing, and so maybe from that point they don't care. I think they will care, and I think they do care, and they need to reevaluate this because they are the biggest brand in football.
Yeah.
And there are Madridistas, but there are also neutrals who simply admire the club and want to see the biggest stars. And I think this can be a little bit of a turnoff to them. Final word on Flick and the High Line. I know this has been a thing all season long. And I've always come out and I've always said, look, very simply, it brings you benefits. He's not an idiot, right? He realizes that you're always at risk because you have Frankie de Jong trying to chase Mbappe or any other quick forward, right? He does this and he's won a treble with it. He may yet win another treble.
Yeah.
However, when it goes wrong, it's really bad.
Yeah.
Is it necessary? he's
I wonder, to be fair, watching the final on Saturday, I did wonder, what if they dropped 20 yards now? What would happen? Would they have the same control? Would they have the same counter pressing?
when you're already winning, you're already winning the game, and you have all the ballers in midfield, so you can keep the ball.
I disagree that. I don't think you can turn the switch and then suddenly say, let's go and play deep now. It's either you play all the time like that or not really. I think it's very difficult, and in a game like this especially, to just go like, you know what, now we're 1-0 up with 20 minutes to go. Let's just drop deeper, because I think you lose a lot of your playing patterns, a lot of the bearings on the pitch. But the counter pressing on Saturday was incredible, really incredible. And the big difference between the two teams, which we don't need to go back again on Real Madrid, but one team ran a lot, the other team not so much. Basically, it goes down to that a lot. But I did wonder, okay, what if you start this game 20 yards, 20 meters a bit deeper? What happens to Lamine? What happens to Rafinha? Because obviously for them, they are 20 meters further away from the Real Madrid goal,
more room, but they have more room to run into.
True, but more running to do too. Still.
And more running to do, yeah.
So I think you're right. It's fascinating, the pros and cons of that kind of stuff, but they're not going to change now. So let's see how far it takes them.
And I think this is this is part of the reason we watch football. There's more than one way to play this. I mean, tactically, one of the many reasons we watch it. And he doesn't do this because he's stupid and he enjoys taking risks. He does it because it's delivered success for him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I am so excited to watch them against Inter, who will not, can yet win the treble in midweek.